Hey everyone! So one really nice change in 3.11 is that the ROC is now purchasable in-game, and for only 172,000 Alpha UEC. I hadn't really used it at all since this update came out, since I'd been mainly focused on the event stuff, so I wanted to use this video to see if it's still good, because even if it did get slightly worse in this update in terms of credits per hour, it still would be a really solid way to earn money. Also, I've heard there are a lot of glitches when you try to use it, so I want to investigate those and see how disruptive they might be, and if there's any good ways to avoid them. So in 3.11 they made a lot of changes to how the mineable rocks spawn. Before, the way they had it set up, specific moons or planets would only have a certain selection of minerals available, but now I think they all can spawn anywhere. However, they did say that the higher value and higher density patches would still spawn in the more dangerous environments, so I still think mining on Aerial is going to be one of the most profitable places as long as you're prepared for the temperature with the Pembroke armor. One other thing I saw about Aerial in the patch notes is that the temperature on the surface was bugged in 3.10, which is why you would get really low survival estimates even when wearing the proper armor. This bug does seem to be fixed now at least though, and I didn't have any issues with low survival times during my time mining on Aerial. But yeah, I did also briefly check out Magda just to have something to compare it to, and I'd say Aerial is still probably the best place to mine, at least from my experience. It had way more Hadanite than Magda, and it's a lot faster to leave its atmosphere to go back to sell at Everest Harbor than it would be at Microtech, which was the other option with good rock spawns in 3.10. Now onto the new bugs. So thankfully I wasn't using a Cutlass Black when I was testing this, or I probably wouldn't have noticed this new issue with the arm. It seems like sometimes it wants to go to this weird position when it's not in mining mode, and it makes it impossible to park facing forwards in this Cutlass Red here. Sometimes entering mining mode and exiting it fixes it for a little while, but it's just annoying to have to do, and it can be quite difficult to get it back out of your ship again, especially if it goes to this glitch state while you've parked it in there. I also tried later with the Freelancer, since everyone has one of those as a loaner for now, and it's actually pretty usable. It's not perfect, but as long as you make sure your ramp is fully touching the ground when you land, the Freelancer is definitely a good option, especially since it's free for now. The best ships for carrying this thing around are still things like the Cutlass Black or the Valkyrie, and if you're going to be mining for more than half an hour, you can just rent a Cutlass for 30,000 credits, and it's not really going to cut into your profits that much. So yeah, if you want the most convenient experience, I'd say rent a Cutlass Black, unless you already have one, but otherwise the Freelancer works fine, if you're just a little bit careful with your parking. Now one glitch that I have seen, like on Reddit and stuff, but I didn't happen to encounter over a few hours of playing, was the quicksand glitch. So if you haven't seen this one, it's where the planet or moon you're on basically just swallows up your rock. So yeah, I can imagine that would be very frustrating if it were to happen, but I haven't had it happen to me, so who knows what your experience will be like. So I'm not saying that this one doesn't exist, but I didn't happen to encounter it. Some glitches that are still around from the last patch are the HUD being too high to look at while you're looking down at a rock on the ground, and the tractor beam that collects the rocks is very finicky to get working. Also, the thing where the fracture percentage stops updating happened to me pretty frequently, and when it does that, I think the best thing to do is just turn off your laser or move it off the rock until it starts updating again. Otherwise, it'll update after a few seconds and the rock will be massively overcharged, which is really annoying. So yeah, just be careful when you're mining for that glitch, and if any of the bars seem to be stuck for more than a second and a half, then I'd probably turn off my laser just to avoid overcharging it. One thing that I was surprised to not have issues with was the new inventory system where you can access the rock's internal inventory. I'm not a fan of the all blue hollow interface, but they've said they're going to change how it looks eventually, and the functionality is pretty great. You can easily split up big groups of items, and it gives you a percentage for how full each of the locations is. Thankfully, this update also fixed the personal inventories and the Pembroke and Novikov armors, so you can take advantage of their pretty sizable capacities now. You don't actually have a ton of space though, and I almost filled it up here with the rock only showing up as 13% full. But you can always put what you collect into boxes when you're standing in a cargo grid to free up your personal inventory. When I'm mining, I like to fill up my personal inventory as much as I can though, because you do keep your personal inventory if the server 30Ks. So you end up with about 50,000 credits worth of Hadanite if you have a full inventory at least, instead of losing everything like you would if you just left it all in the rock. Just be careful when you're doing this though that you don't die, because then you will lose what's in your inventory. But overall, being able to unload it like this is a really nice quality of life update, and it makes it so that you don't even necessarily have to bring the rock back with you if you don't want to. But be careful about just leaving it places. I left it on aerial once, and when I went back later to mine there again, I tried to spawn it again, and I got the bug that sometimes happens with ships where it says it's unable to retrieve it, and I had to go to a completely different moon to go claim it and then retrieve it. So yeah, just be careful about that. So the last thing I want to talk about is how much you make mining with the rock, and overall it's still pretty good. Like I said, I stuck to aerial mostly because they said that the best minerals would still spawn in those harsh environments. My experience reflected this pretty well, because while I did see a bit of dolivine, most of what I found was hadanite, which is really what you want to be mining, unless you see a really big cluster of rocks of something else that will let you fill up pretty quickly. So while it's probably a bit worse than it was in 3.10 because you can't get full hadanite on aerial, you can still easily make over 100,000 credits an hour, which is very solid. One last thing of advice I have right now though is to not mine too close to an outpost, especially with the helmet challenge going on right now. People are going to be looking for easy targets to kill, and miners are just that, especially if you're on the ground in your rock. So I'd recommend either canceling a jump midway or just flying for a while to put some distance between you and those outposts, because people are going to be looking for miners close to those outposts, and it's going to be harder to find you if you're just in a random spot on the moon or planet that you're mining on. So overall, I'd say the rock is still really good, and at least in my experience, it's not too much more buggy than the rest of Star Citizen. I know a ton of people have not been having a great time with all the bugs though, so I don't want to give a false representation that it's perfect, but at least based on my experience, it's still one of the best ways to make money, and it's definitely usable. Also, especially if you don't have any money-making focused ships, being able to buy this in-game for under 200,000 credits seems like a really good deal. I'm going to be taking a look at renting the Prospector again soon, but your earning potential is very similar with both of these, so it's going to be hard to justify the hassle of dealing with a rental Prospector when you can just buy the rock outright. So I definitely recommend checking out the rock, and I hope you guys don't encounter too many bugs while you're earning those credits. So please be sure to like this video if you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.